Welcome to Talk Me Healthy. Each show, we invite a guest to explore a topic related to healthy living. They share their expertise and personal stories, and we learn from them how they turn their passion and knowledge into practical tips that you can use now to improve your health. I'm your host, Sherry Keating, founder of Diabetes Care Consulting. My goal is that each show you will hear something that will motivate you to make a small but significant change towards living a healthier and happier life. Hello and welcome to Talk Me Healthy. My name is Sherry Keating and I'm your host. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I've invited my guest, Rebecca, she goes by Becky Belliveau, from Open Sky Community Services, and she is a supported employment and education specialist. That is a mouthful, huh?
It is a mouthful.
Wow. All right, so welcome. And she's actually also a very good friend of mine. So I'm very excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So May is Mental Health Month.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that. And then I want to learn more about what you do and about Open Sky Community Services.
Okay. Well, Mental Health Awareness Month is a month that we try and educate people about mental health issues. We have events going on. We have a picnic in the park in Gardner, and we have our Valley Friendship Tour, which is out in Whitensville, and it's all to help people understand better and not have so much fear around mental health issues. Our company is a nonprofit mental health company, and we deal with people who have psychiatric issues as well as developmental delays, substance abuse issues, a whole host of people that we cover under one umbrella, which is it's a wonderful thing. It's an all-inclusive model. So Open Sky is a wonderful resource for people.
It sounds like you do a lot.
We do.
Did it have a different name before?
We did. We actually had two different names.
Okay.
Back in July of 2018, we merged. We were Alternatives Unlimited and The Bridge, and I'm sure people have heard of both of them.
Okay.
And we came together as one company, and our official opening as Open Sky was in October. And so we've all come together as one big family, and we are... Our model is called ACCS, which is, and I'm going to look, it's called Adult Community Clinical Services, and it's a team approach. It's a more inclusive approach than we've had before. We have program directors, clinicians, registered nurses, team leaders, outreach workers, housing coordinators, C specialists, which is what I am. It's a shortened version of supported education and employment specialist.
Yes, I should have just said that. It would have been much easier.
And peer support workers, which is also a brand new role for us, and very exciting because it's people with lived experience helping people living their experience. It's a wonderful, all-inclusive model. And by doing this and having teams, we now can follow somebody from the time they come into our services till they graduate or leave our services with the same team. So they're dealing with the same providers the whole time. It's a really great model.
Oh, that's wonderful. So your role as a supported employment and education specialist.
Yes.
So what kind of background do you have and that meets the criteria for that type of position, and what do you do in that position?
My background doesn't match up with it real well, but I happen to be at the right place at the right time.
Okay.
Back in 2009, we had a shift. I do. We had a shift in things back then, and the program that I was currently working at then was closing. So I had to find something else within the company that I would love to do, and I had been helping some of the people that I worked with in the residential program to go out and volunteer different places. So this employment job was opening up. I went and met with the director the then director, and it just felt like a good fit for me. And so what we do is we help people who maybe haven't been in the workforce for a while or have never been. I work with people all the way from 18 to 72 right now.
Wow.
So it's a broad range of people, and I just help them either go back to work or go to school. Some people that I'm working with right now are just trying to either get their high set finished so they can graduate from high school and be done with that and move on to schooling, or some people have left school and want to just get back into college. And so I try and make those connections for people within the community. So I spend a lot of time in the community meeting with hiring managers at businesses, meeting with people within the college setting to get so that I get connected to them so that they know they can trust me when I'm bringing somebody in.
So how do you find your clientele?
So all of the people that I work with are served by Open Sky, and they all are referred to Open Sky through Department of Mental Health. There isn't anybody that works with us that has not either been referred through the Department of Mental Health or the Department of Developmental Delay Services. Those two agencies are our funding agencies. And so we have both sides of things. But I specifically work with the Department of Mental Health side of things, with people with psychiatric disabilities. So I'm helping people. So anybody who's within our services is open to my services.
Okay.
So a staff might sit down to do their annual goal work, and they say within that meeting, oh, I'd really like to go back to school, or I'd really like to go to work, but I just don't know where to start. So then they do a referral and they come see me, and we sit down and kind of brainstorm where they've been, if they've had any work experience or schooling before, and what they need to get to where their goal is. So.
And you coordinate all of that. So you'll find them. So can you give me an example, or can you share a few stories without violating HIPAA?
Yeah.
And just kind of tell me a little bit so I have a better sense of someone gets referred to you. What happens then?
Okay, so I usually sit down and meet with them. We have several different forms that we use to kind of gather information. Past work history, what their diagnosis is and what their struggles are, because I need to get a whole picture of the person so that I'm able to help them the best that I can. Maybe they can only do 10 hours a week, so we want to know that before we go looking for a 40-hour job. Right. And a lot of people worry about benefits and things like that, so we talk through all of those issues beforehand.
Okay.
I had a young lady who came to me a few years back. We've been working together, I think, almost 5 years now. On and off. And when she first came, she was really struggling. And so we were trying to find her something that she could do on her laptop at home. She started doing that, and then she really started struggling. So she pulled back for a while. And at the time when she pulled back, she almost wasn't even able to talk to me in a way that was even helpful for us to work together. She really was struggling. About a year later, she re-referred to me, and now she's working full-time. She is flourishing. She's in her own apartment, and I love my job because I love to see people succeed in what they want to do most. Because a lot of times when somebody will come to me, they don't necessarily believe that they can do what they're coming to me for, but I tell them all, I'm your best cheerleader, and if you don't give up on me, I won't give up on you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I believe, knowing you, that you really are their cheerleader and that you will follow them through the whole way, because that's just who you are.
Yeah. Well,
yes.
It's my purpose in life. It really is. It really is.
So how did you, so speaking of your purpose in life, how did you get this passion to do what you're doing?
Well, it's interesting because when I knew I was coming to talk to you, I started thinking about that, and it goes back to grammar school, believe it or not. Okay. I was very fortunate to be in the Ashburnham school system, and they didn't segregate people away from each other. Back in the 60s, most schools didn't have a special needs, special ed, nothing. And we not only had special ed, but we had a special ed department that integrated people within the mainstream. So I had friends from the get-go that were different back then. That would be how I would describe it. But they were still like us. So we played out on the playground together. And I remember I had this one friend, and she had horrible seizures. And every time she would have a seizure on the playground, I would spend time with her until she calmed down. And I had forgotten that until I started thinking this through. And then probably 5 or 6 years later, I had a new neighbor move in, and she had a stepdaughter. And this girl had cerebral palsy and was developmentally delayed. And we just clicked. And every weekend she came, I would spend time with her. Fast forward, I've got my own children now. I hadn't worked in a long time. And I end up in a temp agency, and they send me to a mental health clinic. I had no background, and I was supposed to be their front entrance secretary. That's what my job was going to be. I ended up being the office manager and loved the field. So I just started doing some studies on my own and went to work for McLean Hospital, actually, as a transcriptionist at home. So I got a lot of knowledge doing that. Lost that position 2 weeks before Christmas in 2005. My daughter was working for Alternatives at the time. She said, "Mom, apply. There's plenty of openings." And that's how I ended up here, and still here 14 years later.
And I can see in the way you talk about it, you're very passionate about it.
And, oh my goodness, I love it.
And that you love it. That's wonderful. And you know what? They're blessed to have you because of that, because it shows that you have a commitment to them and that you really love what you do. And so you work in the kind of work, getting people back into the workforce.
Yep.
So what else does Open Sky do? And you said it services adolescents all the way to seniors.
Yes.
So name some of the services. So if I were to call Open Sky, what would I be looking for?
You would be looking for help for someone or for yourself with any kind of a psychiatric or developmental disability. As I said earlier, we work with people within the community, but we also have residential programs. So if somebody's coming, say they've been in a hospital stay for a while, and now Department of Mental Health has decided they need to go into a residential program. They're just not ready to go back into the community. So we have residential programs, and we cover all of Central Mass. So my office is in Gardner. We have offices in Fitchburg and Leominster. We have offices in Worcester, Whitensville, and Southbridge.
Okay.
And so we cover all that whole Central Mass corridor. And so somebody might come into a residential program, but our goal is always to get people as independent as they possibly can be. So someone may come into a residential program, but that's why this model works so well, because the people that are in that residential program, the staffing, are attached to the rest of the team as well. So someone from the integrated team that works with people on an outreach basis is also attached to that program and working with those people while they're in that setting. So when they're ready to graduate and either go back to their family home or their own apartment, they're already attached to somebody they know.
That's wonderful.
And it's all within the same team. So it's just
so they can build
really
relationships and
model.
trust,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
that's really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So residential. So what about people when they have, say, drug addiction problems and they go into like the acute detox sort of situation? You don't deal with any of that coming out of that unless they have mental health issues, right?
If they have mental health issues, then if they've already gotten attached to the DMH, Department of Mental Health, I've got to stop using letters. I'm sorry. It's just
okay,
so second nature.
I hear you. As a nurse, we use a lot of letters.
Right. Acronyms are a blessing and a curse all at the same time.
Absolutely.
But if they've already gotten attached to Department of Mental Health, then they're going to be referred to either our programs or another program in the area that's going to be able to help them with both, because it's a dual diagnosis.
Right,
so helping with both the mental health issues and the substance abuse issues, so that and they go in tandem anyway. So trying to separate that is
right.
That's why this model became what it did, because you see the need for having both in the same place. The person is covered is being treated as a whole person.
Yeah, and that's really important. How many people do you service?
I'm going to shoot in the dark here because I'm not exactly sure, but roughly around 2,000 people throughout Central Mass.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And in the north component, because they're broken into North Worcester and Southbridge components, and in the north component, roughly 400 to 450 people.
Are you the only provider of this service in this area?
There are other service providers, but they don't do all the things that we do. There's Luck, and then there are clubhouses in the area, West Winds and Crystal House, and they help people with more daily living. They also work with people with employment and education and those kinds of things. I'm drawing a blank about other facilities, but we do cover a lot of this area.
Okay, and so you have residential, you have teams that follow them through, that you have vocational counseling. What else?
We have nursing services. So if someone
what would that include?
So if somebody has medical issues on top of the mental health issues, we have nurses that follow along with that. Or if somebody's having issues with their medications and the PCP isn't necessarily talking to us the way we need them to, they can intervene, because we have 3 nurses in this area, and they can intervene with the doctor's offices and with the hospitals if somebody goes into the hospital. And there's a lot that our nursing services provide that we've never had before, so it's really a great thing. And then we have our own clinicians now, so we're not having to take people to see clinicians, because we have our own in-house clinicians, and they work on planning they do their yearly comp assessments, and they do writing of their IAPs, which is our individualized action plans for everybody. Everybody has one. So we have a lot of those in-house services now that we've not necessarily had before.
So it really is a comprehensive sort of organization, that one-stop shopping, so to speak, you can go and get all of your needs met in that one organization. Yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah. And so tell me a success story.
Well, I shared the one young lady, but when I very first started, I had a young lady who came to me, and she was already living in her own apartment. She was pretty independent, but she just was struggling because she had gone to school to become a fingernail tech. Couldn't find work, was really struggling trying to find something. And it took us probably about a year, because sometimes it takes a while, to figure out what it was that she wanted to do. She had applied for other jobs, but they just didn't work out for her. Back then, we didn't have peer support workers. And she applied through the bridge, actually, for a peer support worker position through them. And they had training she had to go through and all of these different things, and they didn't hire them until they were trained and found out if they were going to be a good fit or not. She did that for over 2.5 years, and she was so successful at it. And she just had such a heart for other people with the same issues that she had, and she was able to give back, and she just felt like she was contributing. And it just was such a great thing to see. And she ended up graduating from our services because she just didn't need us anymore.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That is a great success story.
Yeah.
So what kind of jobs do you line people up with?
Oh, it varies across the board. I had one lady who had been in she had a legal job before. She was a paralegal. And she came to me, and she was willing to settle to work in a grocery store. And I said, I don't like to let people settle. So if you really want to work in a grocery store, that's fine. But if you're doing that just because it's close and you can do that, I don't want to see you do that. I see better things for you. So I happened to have a connection at that time, and I was sitting on an advisory council. I went into the meeting, and one of the things that I did in that meeting was bring profiles of people that were looking for work. I talked about her just very briefly, and there happened to be a lawyer sitting on that board, and she ended up hiring her, and she worked for her for 2.5 years until she moved out of the area and moved on to bigger and better things. So it can vary from a grocery store to a lawyer's office. Wow. It's competitive employment, so it's not like a made-up job. It's what you and I would go apply for, and they just go to their job every day, just like everybody else. So,
and how do you support them during that journey? Once you get them into a job that's a good fit for them, what is your role then?
My role then becomes just as you said, I'm a support for them. I'm in the background if they're having issues. If they've had a bad day, they know they can call me anytime, and we'll just talk it through. If they're having a difficult situation with a coworker, let's talk about how that felt, what you needed to do differently, or what they needed to do differently that you can't change, so that you can change your behavior or change how you respond to them. And so we do a lot of brainstorming once they're working. Sometimes if they've disclosed and they've let somebody know that I'm in the background within their employment piece of things, the employer can call me and we can come in and sit down if there's an issue going on that they're not quite sure how to resolve. There's a lot of things that I can do in the background. And I usually meet with people until they say, I don't need to meet with you anymore. So that could be anywhere from 1 week to a year and a half later. There's one person I've been meeting with her for almost 2 years, and she's been working the whole time. She just gets really anxious and just needs somebody to bounce things off.
So you said you're in the background. So the employers don't know that you're trying to help them get the job.
Not always.
Okay, so that it's just like you said, you and I would go and apply for a job.
Yeah.
So it's not like you have relationships with certain companies that you kind of help them get the job.
I do.
Oh, you do?
I do
both.
both.
So you do
both. I do
okay.
both. That is part of the first conversation I have with people. Do you want to disclose? Do you not want to disclose? And I have a story that I always tell all of them about somebody who didn't disclose and should have. But I never push anybody to disclose because I know the stigma is still there. It's not like it was. Thank you, Lord.
Yes,
It is a wonderful thing to be able to sit down with an employer and explain what I do, what I really do, and have them understand and say, you know what, I will do whatever it takes to help you help people. And I have some really good employers. I'm going to drop a few names because there are some really good employers in our area. Tracy Sturgill down at Walmart in Leominster is amazing to work with. She's the hiring manager. The hiring manager up at the Price Chopper and Gardner, Patrick Brennan, is another one. I just call him and say, hey, have you got any openings? I've got a few people looking for work. And they are just people that I know that if somebody wants to disclose and wants me visibly involved, I can just call them and say, and they know that they can trust me. I'm not going to send somebody that's a bad fit because that's ruining it for everybody I work with. So I'm really careful about who goes for what jobs because I want them to succeed.
Right,
my whole job
sets them up to
for them
fail
to
if it's not a good fit. So you definitely want to invest the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about your why and why you're doing what you're doing. So you want to share a little bit more about that?
Well, for me, the coolest thing that's happened over the last year is my why has become my entire life, which there's a term called lifework. And for a time, I was selling jewelry on top of doing my day job, and I was on the advisory council, and I was doing a few things at my church that were not necessarily my life work. In the past 6 months, my life work is now working with people. I work with people in every aspect of my life. I do the employment piece here, but it's more than employment. It's counseling people and walking people through hard times and all of those things. I mentor with people. Within my church setting, I've started doing counseling with people. So it's one of those things that has just become my whole life. And it's the most freeing thing that's ever happened to me.
I can see that you're, knowing you, I've known you for a while now, and I can see that you're in such a good place. And this is what you were meant to do.
Yeah, it really is.
And you're helping people in various avenues, whether it's through the church or through your work, and I'm sure in the community as well.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, how does someone, does an organization have to initiate a referral to Open Sky, or can I, as a family member or How does that work, the referral, and how do people get a hold of you, and how does that process work?
If it's not someone coming out of a hospital setting,
Yeah.
it would need to be a family member referring their child, spouse, whatever, to the Department of Mental Health. And they would just call the Department of Mental Health and say, hey, I've got somebody who's really struggling. They've got XYZ as a diagnosis, and what's our next step? And they would walk them through that. Then once they're in their system, then they would refer them to the services that they felt best fit that person.
Okay. So it all starts with the Department of Mental Health. So can we put a number on the show so that the viewers have that number?
Yes.
You don't have to recite the number. We'll
Thank
put the
goodness.
number on the show. No, we'll put the number on the show. So it's the Department of Mental Health.
Yes.
And
I
that's
did
the
send
best.
it to you, I think.
Yeah, so we have that, and we'll
Yeah.
put that on the show because
Yeah.
I want people to be able to access your services. And if that's the route they have to take, then they need to have that number.
Right.
So they couldn't call you directly. They would have to go through the Department of Mental Health.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yes.
What do you want people to know about mental health? And
I brought a couple flyers because I do want to promote these a little
Okay.
bit. So this one is Picnic in the Park, and it's run by one of our one of the clubhouses I spoke of, Crystal House. They actually work for Open Sky,
Okay.
so they're our own in-house clubhouse, and they have this Picnic in the Park. It's in Monument Square up in Gardner every year, and it's just a neat time for people to come out and ask questions because it's a non-threatening kind of arena, and people are set up with tables. So usually Westwinds is out there and Luck is there, and it used to be the Bridge and Alternatives, but now we're all one happy family. So we'll have a table there. There's usually some fun things for kids to do, but there's always information there. So
Okay.
people come and they gather all this information, and they have lunch because the people at Crystal House cook, and they have hot dogs and hamburgers and those kinds of things. And it's just a real fun day, and they are having, I'll put another plug in for Toon Foolery. They are an amazing group that comes, I believe they're from Worcester, and they are all people with lived experience, and they just are amazing musicians, and they just play all afternoon. And,
oh, that sounds like a great day. What's
it is.
the date?
It is Thursday, May 16th from 11 to 2
Okay, great.
in Gardner and Monument Park. And then the other event that Alternatives has done for 32 years, so this is the first Valley Friendship Tour for Open Sky. It is down at the in Whitensville at the Witten Mill, which is where that used to be our main office. And it's a beautiful setting. There's a waterfall behind, and there's an open air like patio, huge patio, and people, they have bands, and people run, walk, and ride. And it's a fundraiser.
Okay.
It's like our annual fundraiser, but it's just a lot of people coming together for a really fun day and to support one another within the mental health system. And it's community members, it's kids, it's you name it, they're there. And it's a wonderful, wonderful time to be together, celebrating mental health awareness.
And what's the date of that?
And that is June 1st, and it's 50 Douglas Road in Whitensville.
Okay,
And
so-
people can go online to our website, openskycs.org.
Okay, we'll put that website on the show as well.
And
Okay.
and they can just check out there's
And those events are going to be on your website.
yes, they
So
will
we
be
will
on the
put
website.
the website on there, and then everyone
Yep.
who's interested can get that information. That's
Yep.
awesome.
Yep.
Well, the work that you're doing is, I know for you personally, very satisfying, and your life work and what you are meant to do, but it's also helping so many people.
Yeah.
So thank you and your whole team and Open Sky for what they're doing for people with mental health issues.
Well, thank you for letting me share.
Well, I'm so happy to have you on the show, and thank you for your time. I know you're a busy lady, so thank you for your time and coming on the show. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in again. And again, this is Becky and Belliveau from Open Sky Community Services. And so I hope that you tune back in next month for another health and wellness show. But until then, remember to live your best life every day starting today. This is Sherry Keating. Have a wonderful day.